difficult time, but we wanted to continue with the kind of the development and training that we had discussed back during the AG training by scheduling at least these 3 meetings in April, May, and June to discuss the the 4 pillars of Rotary, the foundation initially today, and then next month we'll be talking about public image and membership, and then in June talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then carrying forward, Kenny and I talked about maintaining these calls on a regular monthly scheduled basis, but really having a theme for each one of the calls going forward. And, tentatively what we had discussed was doing something along the lines of Fast for Hope in July, ethics in August, and the Strive program across the district in later September. So that's what we would tentatively plan to do to make sure that we are regularly holding these to improve communications, not just across the AG population, but with the district governor, and to continue to motivate engagement within the clubs for the assistant governors. So I thank you for your participation and look forward to catching up with everybody every month on a much more regular basis. So this month we've got Kyle Haugen, who's going to talk a little bit about the foundation. And Kyle, why don't I turn it over to you?
Thanks, Scott. And yeah, I didn't have myself muted, and I thought I did, so I threw myself off there. And thanks for having me today. And hopefully, I think this is probably somewhat rehashing a lot of things for some of you, but I wanted to share some today about the Rotary Foundation and how it relates to your role as assistant governors. Let me figure out which screen I'm pulling up here. Okay. That should be helpful. So this isn't intended to be a training session on the Rotary Foundation. While I will go through a few things just to set a baseline, that's not the intent here, because and I'll say this a number of times throughout this, you don't need to be the foundation experts, so to speak, but more so we'll kind of do a little bit of a primer on the foundation, but then talk more about how you can use your role as an AG to help create more Rotary Foundation participation in the clubs that you work with. And the agenda there, like I said, a little bit of a primer off the bat, and then setting a little bit of a baseline setting a primer, setting a baseline of Rotary Foundation knowledge, moving through some talking points you can use, what to look for when interacting with clubs. And should we cut here? They're about to read this verdict. You want me to share a different screen?
Yeah, if you have the ability to do that, maybe we do.
I have it on my other screen here. So the Rotary Foundation might be the most interesting transition I will ever do for Rotary, but all right.
I was looking go back to your narration there, Kyle.
You can't make this up.
Oh, where the heck is bear with me here for a second. I'm going to stop this share again. I've done it so you can see the video. I lost you guys entirely, so I couldn't see anybody when I was sharing it. Anyway, all right. So what are we going to talk about? We're just going to kind of go back to the agenda here, and I'm not going to hem and haw with things in the background. But first things we'll do is establish a baseline of the foundation, then some talking points, and then what to look for when you're interacting with your clubs, and then talking about some of the resources available, and finish it up with a kind of any Q&A that you all have. So as we get started, I'd like to set a baseline of understanding of the Rotary Foundation. I mentioned in the first go round of the entrance of this, some of you may already know this, you may have heard me talk about this, but it's never safe to assume. So I want to kind of cover that. And, when we think about the Rotary Foundation, when we think about all we do as Rotarians, it's very difficult to summarize what we do. And that question that you've maybe heard me ask is the whole, what do we do? And it's hard to give a succinct answer because we do so many different things. Think about the areas of focus, the 7 of them now, with the environment coming in on July 1st as well. And it's really tough to summarize all those because they do so many different things. And one of the ways that I've found it effective, that the foundation team and the fund development team have all found it effective, is to talk about how we create positive peace. And what is that positive peace? It's the fulfillment of all needs to create a fair and just society, where peace can be sometimes mistaken as just the absence of war and violence. I think this is a much broader definition that focuses on all of those things that create that fair, just, fulfilled society. And really, when you think about what we do as Rotarians, it's creating that positive peace. A couple of the examples that we've used over the years, 2 years ago in New Richmond, they did a grant to build a hand washing station and a latrine at a school in a village in Panama. Obviously, in the developing world, girls stop going to school when they start menstruating because there aren't clean and safe facilities. And by providing that latrine, not only did they create better sanitation and hygiene, but they allowed for the girls to continue to go to school, be more educated, and benefit themselves, their families, and the community as a whole more. Certainly creating positive peace. Or, there's countless examples of how we create positive peace, and all of our clubs have done grants that do that. And that's what we do through our actions. But it's important that we share that impact and talk about what we're doing with the money. And most importantly, the Rotary Foundation is the vehicle that helps us maximize the impact that we create in the lives of people, and giving to the foundation is key to making that happen. Some of you may already work with grants or know how the foundation works, but here's a brief illustration. Obviously, there are kind of three main places that you can give to. The endowment fund, which are often larger gifts through either a one-time donation or through a will or estate planning. Those are held in perpetuity. The earnings are used for other things. Or Polio Plus on the left, which I realized when I got done with this presentation at about 1:30 this afternoon, a lot of planning in advance here, that I didn't really talk much about Polio Plus, but certainly it's important. And I think all of us that are on the call here know that giving straight to Polio Plus goes towards polio eradication. But that annual fund share is really where our clubs can participate with the Rotary Foundation the most. And again, how it works, it sits and is invested for 3 years. And then at the end of that 3 years, half of it goes to the Rotary Foundation's World Fund for things like peace centers, global grant matches, Polio Plus, so on and so forth. And the other half comes back to our district for use in grant matches, global grant scholarships, Polio Plus, but the majority of it goes to grant matches. And talk for a second just about the two main types of grants, which I think you should be aware of, just so you know exactly if a club is doing a grant, what is it? A district grant can obviously be done anywhere, either within our district, somewhere else in the United States, or an international location. The scope of these grants is oftentimes smaller, where we will match up to $3,000 of contributions by any one club, and up to 12 grand total if multiple clubs are involved. So from that standpoint, in the example we use in the grants management seminars, if I want to do a $10,000 project in my community, and it's just my club doing it alone, well, I can bring $3,000 to the table. That'll be matched by our district with district designated funds, but there's still another 4 grand that I have to come up with as a club. So it costs us 7 grand to do a $10,000 project. But if I work with Kenny's club and each of us throws in $2,500, that overall amount can be matched to get us to the $10,000. So that partnership, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a little bit too, is so important, because it's going to allow clubs to do more. And frankly, if Kenny's club and my club wanted to do 2 projects, one by us, one by him, it would only cost us 5 grand each then to do 2 $10,000 projects because of that matching. So that's kind of that scope of up to $12,000, how that works per project. Obviously, a grant can be more than $24,000. That's just we're going to contribute at most 12 grand. The Hastings Club a number of years ago did the pavilion by the river. Well, that was a $500,000 project. We gave them $3,000 for it because part of it was district grant funds. Global grants on the other side, obviously, those need to be done internationally. The scope of those, it has to be a $30,000 project. That's a Rotary Foundation requirement, is that it has to be at least 30 grand. And the way the matching works, it's essentially about just over $10,000 that clubs have to bring forward. And then there's matching through the district and through the Rotary Foundation. And there needs to be a host club on the other end. So if you have a club that's talking about wanting to do a project internationally as part of a global grant, make sure that they know and are aware that they have to have a club on the other end as a host club there. And it has to fit with one of the 7 areas of focus. So that's a real brief overview. And to summarize that part, the Rotary Foundation is the vehicle that allows us to maximize the impact we have in our communities and around the world through grants. Obviously, the more money we have, the bigger impact we can make. So it's important that we don't just focus on spending the funds, but we need to encourage members to give to the Rotary Foundation as well. It is very much a wheel that both need to be done. So I hope that at least, I think, again, with this group, and I kind of breezed through that because I think you're all very knowledgeable about the foundation and all give regularly and have been involved in grants and everything. So I tried to get that as quickly as possible. Now let's shift more to kind of your role as assistant governors and some of the things that I think that from a talking point standpoint, you should be aware of when you're talking with clubs. Obviously, one of them, the more money we have, the more impact we can make. So certainly encouraging clubs to give to the Rotary Foundation is important because that's going to allow us and Rotarians around the world to do more. But I think the other part of that is utilizing grants to help add more money to projects. Again, use that example of if we want to do something in our community, we can essentially double our money up to that $12,000 by getting other clubs involved and getting the foundation involved through a district grant. Certainly, we're going to be able to do more from an impact side of things there. And so that's a significant thing. And it kind of leads to that leveraging of funds. That's what we're doing here. We're leveraging grant funds to be able to solve community needs. And I think as assistant governors, as you create a relationship with your clubs, it's important to help encourage them to identify needs both in their community or internationally that they're aware of and that members in their club are passionate about. Because then it's not only, hey, what needs do you want to solve? Do a project to do that, but the Rotary Foundation is there to help you along the way so you don't have to pay for all of it, or it can make the project larger. And that encouraging the club to really look inside of themselves and ask their members, what projects do you think can solve a need in our community that's important to you, is huge. Because as all of us know, you need to have a champion on any project. And without that, it's not going to be successful. And so starting that conversation is I think what a good role of a assistant governor is. The foundation helps make Rotary international. And I said this back in my governor visits 4 years ago. If it wasn't for the Rotary Foundation, we'd essentially be about 40,000 clubs around the world doing projects in our communities with the cash on hand, and that'd be all we can do. By having the foundation, this helps us all work together to do bigger things and be able to do things in different areas because we have partners on the ground elsewhere as well. So that's a significant thing. And really, when you think about it, when all of our members give to the foundation, we're all using that money. It's not my money that I give only comes back to projects in Prior Lake or whatever, but it is very much we're all working together here, which may be one of the other talking points. The One Rotary concept with the foundation, public image, and membership all working together. You know, don't look at as giving to the foundation or doing a grant or project in a silo. But, you know, when we do that project and then we promote it effectively, we're going to engage our current members and attract more people that are willing to be a part of our organization, which gives us more people then to do the next project with. It really is a cycle there. And for an assistant governor to be able to encourage a club, not just to do something, but to make sure they're promoting the project. And this part is key, both outside of and within the club. So many clubs, I think, miss an opportunity when they have 3, 4, 5 people working on a project and they aren't telling the rest of the club about it. That the rest of that club has no idea what's going on and has no way to feel the pride of being a part of that. And so are they more willing to do things or give their money or their time or talents or anything? No. So by encouraging a club to really make sure they're letting their members know what's going on is going to help engage the current membership, and they'll work harder, give more, do more, so on and so forth. But the other thing is the best way to recruit people to Rotary is when we're excited about it, we're talking to our friends and family and neighbors about it. And so that is going to get more people interested when we're more excited about things. So I think making it so the clubs understand the concept of that one Rotary is huge. Also using partnerships. I use the example of Kenny's club and my club working together on a project to be able to leverage more foundation dollars. And it is, you know, each of you are in a geographic area. I would love to see every one of our areas do a grant together. And maybe it's every year the sponsor club gets to rotate, but every year you know that each club in the area is going to give X amount of money. And if it's 5 clubs giving $2,000 each, cool, that's a $20,000 project. And you can do 5 of those every year if you wanted to. And it's each club is throwing in $10,000 and it's making I think my math is saying $100,000 worth of difference in a geographic area. That'd be really cool. But, you know, I know that's a big dream, but it's something to at least encourage the members and the clubs to think about how we can work together. Rochester's done a great job of that. Bill and the other 2 clubs down there, because they all work together in identifying community needs. I know the Stillwater clubs have done that to an extent as well. But why aren't our clubs in a geographic area not working more closely together to leverage dollars, leverage foundation, leverage a combined membership to do more? So I think that partnerships is key. And it's not just that, but it's partnering with organizations and businesses in the community as well. There's nothing that says you can't go to a business in the community and ask for a contribution to a project that benefits the community. That's just creating more money for the project at that point. And certainly all of this, and with 1.2 million Rotarians around the world, we're being part of something bigger when we're all working together. And I think we need to remember that. And the foundation really helps us remember that Rotary is more than just the club that we meet for lunch and do a little bit of roadside cleanup and whatever, but we have a big impact on the world. So those are some key talking points. Let's talk about what to look for and things that I would suggest that are there for you to keep an eye on in your clubs. And one would obviously be grant activity. How active are these clubs in terms of both sponsoring a grant or participating as a partner in funding other clubs' grants? Because I think there's a direct correlation. I haven't connected this yet, but I would guess that the clubs that do grants on a regular basis give more money to the Rotary Foundation. I wonder why. Because they know why it's important at that point. And so encouraging a club, and it doesn't mean that you start off, you know, if a club hasn't done anything for 7 years and go, Kenny, your club has to do a global grant. Well, you're going to scare them right out of the gym. But hey, how about partnering, you know, Kenny, you're in Mankato, you know, Faribault, it's not that far away. They're doing a global grant right now. let's have Dick come over and share about that global grant. And maybe your club can get involved with that, and he'll keep you in the loop so you can see how this process goes. And now it'll be that much easier than once you understand that, well, now it's, can you do a small district grant? And then maybe a bigger district grant, kind of like Mark and the Barron County Club, where they went from doing the district grant for the all-inclusive park last year. And now I think I've at least heard through the grapevine that a global grant is on the horizon for probably next year, because now they've got it kind of figured out, and now they're getting more involved. And guess what else is happening in that club? Donating to the Rotary Foundation is going up as well, because the more people are knowledgeable, the better it's going to be. So look at that grant activity as a sign of either a well-functioning or maybe a club that needs some help. Same Rotary Foundation giving, and don't just look at the overall amount of giving, because that can be misleading based on how big the club is. The two that I like to look at are per capita giving, because that's the average. But that could even be skewed if we got somebody like Kenny who throws in $5,000 every year. You still need to write that check, Kenny. Haven't seen that one this year.
It's in the mail.
Perfect. You know, but one member can give a bunch there. But also let's look at what percentage of members is actually giving. And there's a report that I don't have up here, but the club giving summary that down in the lower right-hand corner over the last 5 years, it talks about how many basically eligible Rotarians gave within the club. Hopefully that's trending upwards. If it's trending downwards, that should be a warning sign for you to kind of say, hey, what's going on with the foundation and the club here? Met with the club earlier this week. We were looking at that report, and while their giving is, the total amount of giving isn't that much different than it was 2, 3, 4 years ago. And the total number of people that have given this year is up a little bit. It's like plus 6 or 8. Well, the other part of things is the membership is decreased by about 20. So good and bad. I mean, you're down 20 members, but your percentage of members that is giving is going up quite significantly there. So it's a way to look at that is look at activity more than bottom line. And another part I would mention in there is checking out to see, is the club setting their goals for both Polio Plus and annual giving? Because again, correlation between well-functioning clubs and putting in your goals, which I know you're all shocked by that. Does a club have a foundation chair? Better, does a club have a foundation team? Tough to raise money for the foundation or encourage grants to be done when nobody's manning the ship. The club president can't do everything. And I know there are some clubs, and this gets me into trouble sometimes. So if your club is one of them, take it for what it's worth. But some clubs will appoint like the past president to be the foundation chair. Encourage any of your clubs that you're working with not to do that, because frankly, if I just got done as being president, I need to take a break. I need to take a breath. I may not have the motivation to do that. And frankly, it might not be in my skill set. I might not be passionate about the Rotary Foundation, and I might not like asking people for money. So encourage people to not only have a chair, but find someone within the club that understands the importance of the Rotary Foundation and is willing to encourage other people to give. Active community and international teams. Certainly that's where the majority of our grants come from. It's either local or international. Does a club have an active team in each of those categories? Because when they do, it's going to be that much easier to identify needs, either in the community or internationally, that they can create and implement more projects. And having a bigger team there means there's more people willing to implement the grants. So more hands means lighter work, right, Scott? That would be nice sometimes in the case of Scott's global grant.
Yeah.
So, and is there a focus on recognition? When you go to a club meeting, do you ever notice how they recognize Paul Harris Fellows? Do they, in a recap, if you're getting the kind of the weekly bulletin from a club that recaps the meeting, is there anything about how they recognized Bev and Ryan as Paul Harris Fellows the previous week? People like to be recognized. So make sure a club is thinking about how they can recognize their members, not just for foundation giving, but for all sorts of things, because that's going to get people more excited. You know, Kenny and I are competitive. If all of a sudden they're recognizing me every year for giving to the foundation, Kenny's probably going to go, well, I can do that too. If Kyle can, I can. It builds that, and without doing that, clubs are doing a disservice to themselves. And additionally, using that opportunity of recognition to educate their members on what the Rotary Foundation is, why the Rotary Foundation provides this recognition, and why it's important to give. Because you're not necessarily asking directly for a donation, but you're making the membership smarter from that perspective. So if you have clubs that basically do the old hand over the Paul Harris Fellows behind the Burger King on a drop off, encourage them to recognize the members for it. And yeah, every now and again, there's a member that doesn't want to be recognized, and that's okay. Check with the member first, but then, you know, hey, you deserve to be recognized. It's okay. So that's another thing. And then it's a promotion of Rotary programs. The more people are aware of what we do as Rotarians, obviously, the more they're willing to do and give. So is a club, are there weekly programs focusing on Rotary programs every now and again? Are they talking about, as we talked about before, are they talking about what grants the club is doing to be able to encourage more participation and more knowledge there? You know, once upon a time in our club, and this isn't necessarily foundation specific, but once upon a time, once the community service committee decided on a contribution and the board approved it, check went off. If you weren't on the community service committee, you had no idea what we were doing with our funds throughout the year. And we changed and said, well, if you want a check from Prior Lake Rotary Club, you got to come to a meeting and get it and tell us about what your organization is. Same thing with grants. If you're donating to another club's grant, invite them to come give a 5-minute little presentation on it so your members know what's going on there. And certainly even talking about the Rotary Foundation or whatever. So the more you can encourage them to have that inward looking Rotary focus from time to time, the better they're going to be. Towards the end here, resources. There's a lot of resources that you can utilize. I kind of said at the beginning, I think, and I told you I was going to focus on this a lot, and I didn't focus on it too much, but your role as assistant governor is not to be the expert on everything. Okay. And I said that a couple of weeks ago on the foundation coaches thing too, especially with the foundation. Your role is to be that conduit between the clubs and whoever is the expert. Or several years ago, I said, you're the relationship manager. Your job is to get to know the club, understand what's important to them, and provide ideas and solutions for them to be the best they can be. And here are the resources that you have behind you as an assistant governor from the foundation aspect. The District Rotary Foundation team, obviously that starts with the team leader, which I'm almost done, and then Ed's taking over July 1st. And you know, I mean, the Polio Plus team, which Dick is a part of, and Charlie Kogan and Joe Stallman are team leaders of right now. The grants team, which wonderful resources there when it comes to grants, and Margie Horning knows her stuff up and down. But those are, and the foundation coaches, as we'll kind of draw the line there. And we talked about the coaches not a couple of weeks ago, but their job essentially is to be an assistant governor specifically for the Rotary Foundation. So you don't have to be the expert there, but they're the ones that can go meet with a club, kind of create that plan to create more of a culture of foundation participation, both giving and grants, so that you don't have to be doing everything. You can focus more on the membership, public image side of things, so on and so forth there. But all of those resources are within our district. Don't be afraid to utilize them. It's pretty easy to connect with them. You can ask Kathy, you can ask Kenny, you can ask me or Ed, or whoever, hey, here's the question I have. Who should be the person to help out with this? And then connect them directly with the club, and you're in good shape from that perspective. So that's those. Obviously, there's Rotary Foundation staff. We have an annual giving officer, Adina Mehovich, a major gifts officer who is, I can picture her right now. Who's our major gifts officer, Kenny or Kathy? Wow, she's one of my friends at Rotary. But anyway, we have kids like the same age, and every conversation we have becomes 25 minutes because we talk about our kids for the first 15 minutes. It's Rachel Greenhoe. That's who that is. I knew I'd come up with it. But there's plenty of other people there too that we can connect clubs with as well. And I say it that way because you don't need to be in the middle of it. The regional leadership team, and I'm learning more about this as I become our regional public image coordinator, but there's a whole regional public image team and assistant people in public image, foundation, membership, and polio that can help. And then obviously the DG line, both current and past DGs, are a great resource as well. So again, these people are all here to help you. You don't have to be the expert. There's somebody else that's the expert. You just need to be that relationship manager to make the connection. So I tried to keep it fairly brief today. Hopefully I succeeded. And I just stopped sharing my screen. And if you have any thoughts or questions, happy to answer any of them.
Yeah, Kyle, this is Bill. I have a question. And correct me if the information is there and I just can't find it. But one of the things I know when the clubs are told about the foundation and the grants, and I think there's a number, it's either 73 or 78% of the grants are funded because we don't have enough, or we have higher demand than we have a supply of money. And, everybody understands the 3 years worth of giving before you get the money back. But on a pictorial standpoint, sometimes that comes across as potentially we're not generating enough. But on a same point, if there would be a picture, and maybe you have it, maybe Margie does, as to how much money is there versus the demand for the money over the past 10 years, like a line graph or a bar graph that would say, in 2010, we had X amount in the foundation at the district level. In 2015, we have this, in 2020. And you can actually see it because it has been increasing.
Yeah. It's just, up until last year, I think we had 4 straight years. Well, up until, both are increasing, basically. Is that the amount of giving in the last 3 or 4 years has gone up substantially. In fact, I'll tell you that, let's see, it would have been the 2012, 13, 13, 14, 14, 15, and 15, 16 years. Our annual fund giving each one of those years was between $305,000 and $310,000. So we can call that a straight line. Then in 2016, it went up to about 383. 2017, 18, it was at 420-ish. 18, 19, it went down a little bit to back in that 380-ish range. And then last year, we were at about $450,000. Things are going up. Now, a couple things there. Number one, we haven't realized all that money because of the 3-year window. Yep. But if you also look at from 2012, 13 until now, with the exception of last year, the demand for district grants kept going up and up and up. And I think it was 16, 17, 17, 18, and 18, 19. No, maybe it was, I don't remember if it was 3 years or 4 years. It wasn't this year, but it was 3 or 4 years before that, that we had, we had a shortfall, and we had to use a matrix to kind of, everybody got at least 50 or 55%. I was very adamant that it had to be at least half, even to the detriment of some of the clubs that were on the higher end that would have gotten more than what they got, including mine. But I thought it was important that everybody at least got some there, more than half. But last year, thankfully, we didn't have that issue. Everybody got fully funded last year, or this Rotary year, I guess, the 2020-21 Rotary year. All the district grants got fully funded. And between the 9 of us or 11 of us right now, and don't quote me on this, so far the proposals for next year, it looks like it's going to be a fairly lean year. So I think that we'll probably have that 100% again, which is good for the global grant side of things, frankly, because whatever we don't use to match district grants, we can use on the global grant side of things. So we're going to have more money there to try to fund those. And yeah, we could put together just a chart showing here's how much money we had available, and here's how much worth of grant requests we had. And I mean, that's just it's an issue, and it's an issue throughout Rotary International. I mean, the World Fund right now is having to reduce the amount they're matching for global grants, because the demand for global grants over the last 10 years has gone something, maybe not quite straight up in the air, but demand has doubled, tripled, quadrupled almost. So yeah, it's an issue, but you don't want to make it, and I try not to, and if it's come off as maybe interpreted by people as it is, we're not giving enough, I'm trying to make it, now, we keep giving more. It's just that we keep doing more as well,
Yes.
which needs to be, maybe visually it can help with that message as well.
Yeah, I mean, showing that the high demand gets more people interested, because they look around and say, boy, the peer clubs, everybody's now participating in grants, and maybe we should participate in a grant.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm picturing it even right now that we could just put that number underneath it of how many projects we did as well in that year. So Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, Kyle, this is Scott. I just wanted to thank you for taking time out today to do this. You put things in such easy to understand terms, and the talking points I thought were fabulous. I did have a quick question on Rotary Foundation giving and some of those numbers and statistics. And how easy is it for the assistant governors to get that information for their respective area? And is that something that's easily accessible? And is that something that we should be reporting on and kind of tracking at each area level more regularly?
I think tracking it, I would say, is not your responsibility. Looking at those reports to familiarize yourself with your clubs on a regular basis, yeah, you can do that, because as we talked about, looking at those different numbers, it gives you a pretty good snapshot of a club. If you're looking at, membership trends and giving trends and what kind of grant activity, you can pretty well look at that and know if you wanted to factor in too what type of district event attendance there is. Pretty good indication of how what kind of a club we're dealing with in terms of activity. From the standpoint of how easy it is for the assistant governors to look at those reports, I don't know the answer to that question, just because I have access to way too many reports, and I frankly do not remember what kind of access assistant governors have. Kathy, do you know, or does any of the other AGs know what you have access to? I would assume you have access to the foundation reports and the membership reports for the clubs in your area.
They
Kathy,
should
is
have
that
access
correct?
to Rotary Club Central, and you can pull the reports up under Rotary Club Central reports and pull it up by area.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other thing, and I do this sometimes, I don't do it with enough frequency, but I do have a foundation scorecard that I put together and send out when I feel like it needs to be done, and I'll just kind of pull one up here. But don't know which monitor it's going to come up on, so I'll get there in a second. Okay, let me share this real quick. This is just a scorecard that I put together and update on occasion, and but it goes through all the clubs. It talks about where they're at membership wise. Now this was through basically 3 months ago or so, and then foundation, do they have a goal? Okay, and then where are they at from a from per capita standpoint? Same thing with Polio Plus, and then there's a couple other tabs. Another one that I like is at least seeing, has the president or president-elect or the foundation chair, team leader, champion in a club, have they made a contribution? Because try to push that side. So this is more foundation centric, but I think it's with the membership piece in there, it's a good little activity snapshot. And Kenny, I have some ideas on who could probably do this for you once a month next year. And it can be sent to everybody or sent to leadership or whomever from that perspective. But it's good every now and again. I go in and on occasion start doing a deep dive of all of whatever reports and looking at things for different clubs. And frankly, because of my zone role, I have access to reports for 23 different districts, and I start comparing stuff, and then it's midnight and I need to go to bed, and I didn't even realize it was not 9 o'clock anymore. So, but it is good every now and again to just go in and go into that Rotary Club Central and just look at the clubs in your area's reports and see how they're doing with things, because they don't change that much from week to week. Does that kind of answer that, Scott?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. I particularly like the scorecard, and I would just throw out, is that something that perhaps we should share with this group a couple times a year, and maybe identify someone within the district who does continue to maintain that.
Yeah, and frankly, I think if we do it, I mean, if I got my act together, I'd do it monthly, and then I think it should be shared with all of leadership monthly. And I mean, I put that together when I was district governor, and I sent it out as part of the newsletter every month because I wanted every club member to be able to see it, because, Bev may not be in club leadership that given year, but Bev is a leader in her club. And because everybody, when Bev talks in the Stillwater Club, people listen. So if we're only sending it to club leadership, Bev doesn't even know that maybe their club hasn't put their goals in and is way down in giving, where if she can see it, she can kind of tell everybody, hey, get your act together here. This isn't the way we do things in this club. And so getting it out to as many people as possible. And if somebody doesn't want to look at it, fine, but at least give it to them that way.
I like that idea, Kyle.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's if we only send it to 1 or 2 people, and we know that the majority, we know that a good number of clubs, the presidents are overwhelmed and they're just trying to get through the year. And if we expect them to try to communicate effectively, we're not going to be successful. And that's where, and I think assistant governors, the foundation coaches are a significant kind of role, because you're the ones that can go meet with a club and say, how's it going? And even if you're just there for lunch, the president might be telling me one thing, but I'm sitting there with Ken and Ryan and Dick, and they're telling me something different. That's how I'm, it's kind of ears on the ground to really identify what's going on with the club from that perspective. And it's kind of dividing that role, coach, the foundation coaches for the foundation, so you don't have to be the experts there. That was just a matter of trying to make your job easier.
Well, thank you again. And we've got a few minutes left. If people want to ask more questions, you can take yourself off mute, and it's a great opportunity to ask Kyle for some greater clarity. Not that he hasn't already provided great clarity.
I don't know. Well, you all know how to find me too. I joked with Kathy now that in 2 months I no longer will be a part of Council of Governors. I'm not going to be the district foundation team leader anymore. Handing off some of the awards related things as well. So I joked with Kathy a little while ago that I'm no longer going to be a W-2 employee of the district. I'm only going to be a 1099 consultant when needed. But you all know where to find me, and I'm happy to help in whatever way I can.
You're not going to hide for long.
From you, I sure will.
That's probably wise.
Yes. The second I had to start working with you, I engineered a global pandemic just to avoid you, Ken.
That was well played.
You like that one? Yeah. But nothing else.